Years ago, the French built a fort here on the banks of the Mississippi, making it the river's first settlement. Known as Rosalie, the fort would eventually become the town of Natchez and the capital of the Mississippi Territory. And 100 years later, when Mississippi became a state, Natchez was its first capital. Needless to say, this 300-year anniversary is a big deal for Natchez, so much so that the city tapped a Hollywood producer to oversee the year-long celebration. And that producer just happens to be a Natchez native. Jennifer, first of all, I just want to say thank you for letting us come take over your fantastic city.
We're glad to have you.
We've had a great time in Natchez.
Good, good. We welcome you anytime.
Well, thank you. I hope you feel the same way after this interview.
Yeah.
No, I'm just
Me
kidding.
too.
I'm just kidding. I was asked to ask this question, and I don't normally take requests, but I will on this one.
Okay.
Why is it that we've already interviewed so many incredible people from Natchez? What is it about Natchez that produces so many incredible people?
The water, the river.
Is it the
I'm
water?
telling you, people in LA always ask me, like, why do you always say you're from Natchez? Because, you know, you live away for a long time.
Right.
I grew up here, lived away for 30-something years, and never would say I was from New York or Los Angeles. I was always, I'm from Natchez,
Well, nobody's from Los
Mississippi.
Angeles.
Well, actually, there are a couple,
people.
maybe two.
Okay.
Anyway, so we decide, you know, I think that there's something about the way that we grow up here.
Yeah.
Natchez is a unique place. It's unique in all of Mississippi, too. There's no place else in the state that's like Natchez. And I think that we all, so many of us, have such a strong connection to the traditions, the history, and not just what you expect out of the antebellum homes, but the traditions that we have here. And of course, like I said, I tell people it's the river. River water instead of blood.
The river water. Okay, I'm going to go get a big cup of it and drink it on the way out of here. So maybe I can start having some of the success y'all have.
And then you'll be tied to coming back. See,
Well, that's
that's
true.
the whole hook of it. We get you coming back.
Well, you have been charged with a very important task of being, you know, you've been a producer for a good chunk of your career, and now you get to be a producer for the 300th birthday of Natchez.
Yeah, it's a little bit like trying to produce 5 movies at once and various stages of production. Like we were talking a little bit earlier about Star Wars. It's like producing Star Wars, producing Tuesdays with Morrie, and 5 other movies in between that all at one time. Part of it is that we really looked at this as an opportunity to tell the story of Natchez, the whole history of Natchez. Several years ago, in 2008 actually, I was here from LA visiting my mom, and I was out for a run downtown, as I would do, and I happened to be thinking about something I'd read in the Democrat that morning about some community argument or something. This group wasn't agreeing with that group, and I thought, I was running and I was going, golly, this reminds me of a movie where you have the whole crew, right? If you look at what it takes to make a movie, I always describe it as a bicycle wheel or a tire, where you've got the tire and you've got all the spokes.
Right.
My job and the director's job and the other, the kind of creative team, they're the hub in the center of that. And then everything else is what goes into making a movie, right? Actor, script, legal, insurance, special effects, finance, all the various things that go into making it. If you ask the Teamsters spoke, what's the movie about? They're going to say, well, the movie's about, you know, transportation. If you don't have us, you don't move anything. And the actors will say, well, if you didn't have us, you wouldn't have anything to move. And the script writer will say, well, if you didn't have us, you know, none of y'all would have a job.
Right.
And I always say that the reason that movies work, that kind of situation where everybody feels like theirs is the most important element, the reason that works is because they've all got a common goal, which is to make a great movie, to entertain people, sometimes just so they get another job, right? And I started thinking what I was seeing was very similar to that. It's like there are all these wonderful elements of Natchez, really distinct and different stories, different groups, different whatever, city and county, and all of the different groups. And I thought, what would bring them together in a different kind of way? What would get everybody working together? I happened to read a blog when I got back from the run, and it was 300 years coming up in 2016. And this is such a cliche, but it was a light bulb that went off, and I went, oh my gosh, 300 years of history belongs to every single one of us.
Right.
Who's ever called Natchez home. It could be me, it could be Glenn Ballard, it could be, the guy at the Go Mart. It belongs to all of us. And so I started thinking about how could we do this? How could we do this? Went to see Butch Brown, who was not mayor at that point. He was at MDOT, but I knew he was one of the most passionate Natchez, lovers of Natchez, supporters of Natchez. And I said, I want to try an idea out on you before I go back to California. What do you think about this? Well, I told him I wanted half an hour. 2 hours later, we were sitting there going, well, we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. And so that was kind of the genesis, the germ, I guess, the seed was planted at that point. And took a number of years to get to this point. Butch is still very passionate about it. We have events, he will say there's an event every single day of the year, and there really is an event every single day of the year. It's called the Natchez History Minute. And we've got things that happen every Monday evening. We've got a lot that we're doing for free, thanks to some incredible sponsors. It's an entire year. It's conferences, it's conventions, it's music, it's festivals, it's commemorations.
Right.
One of the first things, and I know I'm just totally talking, Marshall, but
that's what this is about.
I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah, no, please do.
As you can tell.
Yeah.
One of the first things that we did, though, when the mayor asked me to get involved in sort of mid 2014, actually come on board and try to pull all of this together, I said, we need to really have a very clear goal and mission about what we're doing, very clear to everybody. And I said, for me, it has to be about three things. It has to be commemorating our past, because some of our past is not to be celebrated particularly, it's not particularly pretty, but it is absolutely to be commemorated.
Right.
And we've got a lot to celebrate, so that's the second part of it, is celebrating the present, celebrating the growth, celebrating what we're all doing. And then the third is creating the future. And the creating the future piece, to me and to all the volunteers that are working so hard to make it happen, is not just about creating it from a youth standpoint, which is very important, but it's also about creating a community that's working together better. It's bringing the community together, and that was the other piece of the mission. It was to bring people to bring our community together and create economic opportunities by those three C's. Commemorating, celebrating, and creating. And I'm just incredibly excited about how well it's been going and about the involvement and participation and the opportunity that's been in it.
Yeah, you would have to feel like that maybe your mission wasn't successful if one group felt like they were left out, but you have done a masterful job of really telling everybody's story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We got lots more to go too.
Yeah.
We've got a lot. We will be commemorating and celebrating our Spanish heritage. We celebrate the French when we celebrate our 300th birthday, which the French planted
And
the
I
flag.
think people forget that this is actually older than New Orleans.
It is.
I know.
We're 2 years older than New Orleans.
But don't look it.
Good.
Don't look a day over 200.
Yeah, well, that's the state.
Yeah.
Mississippi, and we love the fact that we came out of the gate first. Natchez is 300 in 2016, the state's 200 in 2017, New Orleans 2018.
That's true.
So we get, and we're working together though. In particular, I've been really enjoying the relationship that's developing with a lot of the state people in the Mississippi Development Authority or tourism, that we are looking to be able to support the state's 200th by the initiatives that we're doing this year.
That's a good point.
We always talk about the state's 200th.
Yeah. That's a great point. And you're lucky too, because you've got a whole stable of people like you said, Glenn Ballard, or you get, Greg Isles, or
Absolutely. Well, we have people like Regina Charbonneau.
Yes.
Who's awesome.
Very awesome.
She's totally awesome. And she's creating a new festival this year as the Tricentennial, as the first year inaugural festival, which will be the Biscuit Festival.
Yes.
I'm at Regina's back door all the time.
Yeah, I would be too. I'd be knocking on
there.
She's lucky there's about 90 miles between us. So
yeah, really. You probably are too.
Yeah, I am too. I'd be much rounder, but that'd be great.
I moved home to Natchez, and I instantly was much rounder than I was.
I did that move when I moved from California to Mississippi. I gained 40 pounds.
Did you really?
I did. I discovered really good fried food. It was delicious.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. My friends come from California and they want to go immediately and go have fried chicken.
Of course.
And biscuits.
Yeah, because you can't
fried
get that.
Catfish.
Can't get that in California. No,
absolutely.
Not in a million years. Let's talk a little bit about you growing up. Of course, you grew up here. This is home. And you went off to the exotic land of Millsaps in Jackson.
Loved it.
How did you get involved in the movie business? Because I think it really has a pretty cool twist to it. It was almost an accident, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. I was between semesters, or summer break at Millsaps. And United Artists came to shoot this massive, enormous movie that they were shooting here. J. Lee Thompson's. It was the first version of it. I'm going to totally age and date myself, but it was in 1974.
Okay.
And so it was people like Paul Winfield, who was extraordinary actor, who had just finished Sounder, which is one of my favorite films. It was just incredible production. He was in it. J. Lee Thompson, who had just directed Planet of the Apes at that point. So there were all these huge Hollywood people from New York. Woody Allen's producer was one of the producers on the movie. And I went in to audition. I just thought, well, wouldn't this be a trip? I'm in theater at Millsaps. I'm doing a lot of the theater productions at Millsaps. And I thought, wow, how cool would this be? I could audition. If I could get into get cast, this would be so fun to be in a movie. Yeah. And I had a job as in a law firm because I was planning to go to law school.
Right.
And so I go, and I was, it was just one of these crazy things. I auditioned, and then I thought, well, I'll just apply. If they need any secretarial help or something, this would be really fun. I went home that afternoon. I will never forget. I had put my proper little grown-up clothes on, went down to make the application to work, and the woman in the office said, who later became a huge mentor, said, well, we can't, we're not going to hire anybody until June, and this was early May. And I said, well, I really want to work and need to work, so I guess I'll go back to my law firm. So I go back home, put my lake clothes on, as we all do, and go over to Lake St. John. She calls up and said, can you come back for an interview? Something's happened. And I went, sure. So I go hauling it back to her office, did the interview, and she said, I need
in your lake clothes?
No, I pulled my skirt.
Okay, you're back, okay.
I had lake clothes on underneath, pulled the other dress clothes on, found all the appropriate pantyhose and all that stuff that we wore back then, and go back. So she goes, well, great, can you type? And I went, yes, absolutely I can type. Can you do shorthand? Hadn't a clue about shorthand. Absolutely I can take shorthand, no problem. So she said, okay, great, you're hired, you've got to start Monday. And oh, by the way, the Teamsters are all arriving Monday, the tractor trailers with wardrobe, there's a casting director coming from LA, and we've had an emergency in Illinois, and we all have to go, so you're in charge. So I was like, this is insane. I called my mother at her office and I said, Mom, you got to bring a typewriter home for me, and you got to help me figure out how to take shorthand by Monday. I'm not even sure how to do this, but you got to help me learn. So I started that Monday, and I was completely hooked. Acting kind of took a back seat because I loved all the pieces that go together. The fact that making a movie is collaborative.
Right.
You don't do productions and movies by yourself. It's not a kind of creative process that you do without other people. Even today, my daughter makes movies on her iPhone, right? And she says, well, I don't need anybody else to make a movie. I said, yeah, you do. You need your audience. Yeah. Because if you make that movie and nobody sees it, are you okay with that? She goes, well, no, I want people to see it. So there's a collaboration that happens, whether it's a crew of 150 people, or whether it's you, your iPhone, and one person that you're going to show that movie to. So, I mean, I was completely hooked, Marshall. It was all over. I said to Mom, I'll go to law school. I'm just going to take 1 year in New York, just one year. I stayed connected with the Woody Allen's producer and the woman who was also his coordinator. And I mean, I moved to New York, went to school in New York, would work on things like Annie Hall in between. Wow. I worked on Annie Hall, Manhattan. I started working with all these people. Yeah. And it was, one of those things where you just have lucky breaks, and then you got to be willing to capitalize on them. I did everything with the exception of driving a tractor trailer and actually being an electrician or a grip.
And you might get to do those this year at the rate things are going. So.
Let's see, have I done that? Yeah, I actually think I may have done the truck part, but I basically said yes. If somebody with that, the only thing I did not do was work on, porn movies. But if I was asked to be work in an accounting office, I said absolutely. And through that whole process, I learned a lot about it. I learned about making films, and I had the most extraordinary people to work with: the Sidney Lumet's, the Woody Allens, Peter Yates, people like that I really learned.
I mean, you got an education just like that. It's amazing, and they paid you for an education.
They paid me in those days not very much.
Not very much,
but I didn't care. But it was working with people that were incredibly gifted,
right?
And that I could. I don't know. I felt like I was a sponge. I still feel like that. I hope I go to my grave being a sponge and learning something new and finding out more about something, anything.
I do hope my kids watch this, because I mean, seriously, you had no fear. You took on jobs, and you didn't sit there and say, I can't do that. You just said, I'll try it, and it paid off.
Right. What's the worst that could happen?
Exactly. What are they going to do? Fire you?
And if they did,
you can go back to the lake.
Yeah.
That's not bad because you're still under your lake clothes.
I'm still in my lake clothes.
3 years later.
Yeah, absolutely.
You had a pretty quick rise. Your career did. You ended up at 20th Century Fox. I mean, that had to be an amazing experience. Vice president in film.
Yep,
film division. Yeah. What was that like, and what movies?
It was great. I was executive producing a movie called Prelude to a Kiss for 20th Century Fox. We were on location in Chicago and Jamaica, and I got to know the senior people at Fox pretty well through the course of producing this movie, and we did one of those, doing it for a lot less than we would like. We would have liked a bigger budget.
Sure.
We did extremely well with what we had, and I was invited to go meet with the executive in charge of production for Fox on location at Last of the Mohicans, shooting in North Carolina.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Well, that alone would have been worth just getting the invitation to come interview.
Sure.
And I went to the location, met with him.
And that location's the same location they use for Hunger Games also.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
It's spectacular.
Very gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. I remember driving from the airport, which was a couple of hours away, and you get to the woods part where it was filmed, and driving in, and I look up and I see Daniel Day-Lewis in his bottoms, his his Native American clothes, and I see him carrying a spear, his long hair flying, running through the woods. And at first I thought we had accidentally gotten in the middle of a shot.
Yeah.
He was out at lunch break, and it was the most gorgeous image. I still can see it in my mind about him just out running with a couple of the other cast members, staying in shape or whatever. But I wasn't sure about accepting the offer because I'd been a freelance person, and freelance can be terrifying, and it can be very addicting.
Yeah.
It's either as good as it is or as challenging as it is, it's going to end.
Yeah.
So I was hesitant about it, and I went to see a friend of mine who had been a production assistant with me on the movie Hair, who was at that time president of Disney. So I went to see him in LA, and I said, Michael, I got to ask you something. Should I accept this offer? I mean, we've both been freelance people. You're now a studio executive. He goes, this is a kind of education in producing you will never get as a freelance producer. You'll never get it just by reading a book or as much as you produce. You're never going to understand the studio system until you're inside the studio system. He was 100% right. And so I learned a lot about how studios make decisions about what films they greenlight. Some of which was sobering to me again as a freelance producer, but also giving me a lot of tools to figure out, okay, I'm going to be a better producer when I leave Fox because of what I was learning in the studio system. We did some incredible films, Mrs. Doubtfire, the movie Speed. And I got a chance to work with Philip Kaufman, who Unbearable Lightness of Being was one of his films, but he did a movie with Sean Connery and Wesley Snipes. And I had worked with Sean a couple of times, and so they were interested in me being the executive on that film because of that. So it was great. I mean, I had a wonderful few years, and then I was ready to go back. I mean, I was ready to go back into, this is wonderful, love you guys. I was there for 3 different administrations at Fox over those 4.5 years. And then I went back to freelancing. And some of that was, you know, an interesting path. Things like The Rich Man's Wife with Halle Berry, which was a virtually first-time female director, which was why I was asked to produce that. Really interesting experience. And then it was things like How Stella Got Her Groove Back, where the development process of book to screenplay to production, or to, you know, to prep and development and funding to production and then release, which was really fabulous. And then Tuesdays with Morrie as well, which was another one of those.
Yeah, let's talk about Tuesdays with Morrie. Of course, that was an Oprah Winfrey production, but it's from Mitch Albom's amazing book. I think that was his first book, wasn't it? I mean,
you know what? I think it may have been his first one. I think it was his first book.
Yeah, he was a sports writer in Detroit, and he wrote the book, and it was, of course, based on his own life. And Jack Lemmon and Hank Azaria were two incredible, gifted actors, and that was Jack Lemmon's last role.
It definitely was.
Yeah.
We were so fortunate with that. That was an extraordinary production. I was living in Colorado. I had taken a little bit of a break and was staying in Colorado. Wasn't sure how long a break I was going to take, and got a call from my agent, and she said, you know, I know you haven't really done any television, and, you know, I did feature films, was what my kind of background was in. She said, would you be interested in television? I said, well, is it a network, cable, what? Because it's different, as you well know, different guidelines, different ways of working. And she said, well, it's network. I said, oh, I'm not sure that this is really, I'm the best person for that, or vice versa. And she said, well, it's a book you might find interesting. She told me what it was, and I said, had just read it. And I said, I'm in. I mean, the detail, I don't even care. And then she said, oh, by the way, Oprah Winfrey's company's producing, Oprah's producing, can you come to LA and meet? And I said, sure, absolutely. I think I could.
You get Mississippi girls together, we can do miracles.
You know, when I met her, and I would never forget, I had a linen blouse on, and she came into the room, and she goes, I don't believe it. I want to know how it's 4:00 in the afternoon and your linen blouse is not wrinkled. I said, that was the first thing she said. And then we exchanged Mississippi stories. We realized we were both born in the same year. We both had, there were similarities in our growing up and all of that. And her partner, Kate Forte, was fantastic. We had a director, Mick Jackson, a British man, who it was extraordinary as well. So we start setting it up, and I get a call from a guy named Michael, and I totally cannot believe I've lost his last name. One of the most extraordinary production designed The Color Purple, for instance. Oh, wow, multiple Oscars. Michael called up and he said, and I loved him, he was a great, great guy, and he called me up and he said, I hear you're doing Tuesdays with Morrie. I said, yeah, and he goes, well, do you have a production designer? I said, well, Michael, I would love to know if you've got a good art director, a new art director, someone. I said, this is for television. We don't have a feature film budget. There were studios all over the place that wanted Oprah to do it and would give us a lot more money to do it as a feature, and Oprah was committed to doing it for television. Oh, wow. She said there are more people that will have a chance to see this film if it's done for television as opposed to, in the theaters and as a feature. And I said, Michael said, well, no, I want to do it. And I said, Michael, we can't afford your, we can't afford your petty cash budget. Yeah. He said, you don't understand. I've been in the hospital for the last 3 weeks with my father-in-law. I've been reading the book to him. Oh, wow. And he is about to die, and I want this. I'll do this movie. I don't care what you pay me. Oh, and Marshall, it's emotional to even talk about it, because it was like that every step of the way. Yeah. We had an Oscar-winning editor. We had an Oscar-winning cinematographer, all saying, I want to do this movie because of what this movie is.
And it ends up being Jack Lemmon's last role.
Jack Lemmon's last role.
The last scene right at the very end when he says goodbye was his last scene ever filmed.
That was his last scene ever filmed.
Wow.
Not a single person on that set. We were sobbing. I mean, it was to the point we all knew that it was
you're tearing up now even just thinking about it. Yeah.
This is years ago,
Yeah.
but you're witnessing this incredible performance of this man who is a legend, who is, we didn't know it was his last performance, but he's coming to the end of his life. And every single one of us we knew we had seen something way beyond what we even imagined. Yeah. The night we won the Emmys, Jack won, Hank won, and when they announced the winners that Oprah and Kate and I won for producing, that the film won, Jack was just off stage when I walked off stage with it. Oh. And Hank was there, and it was very, very emotional, very moving. Probably one of the greatest experiences I had. He was a gentleman. He came to work knowing everything he was supposed to do. He was kind to everybody on the set. He knew people's names. Yeah. He was and real. Hank was, they were both incredible to work with. It was extraordinary. Mitch was on the set a lot, and Maury's wife, Mrs. Schwartz, was on the set some as well, which was an amazing experience too.
Well, to wrap up, because unfortunately I wish we had 4 hours to talk, because believe me, we could. I'm so glad that you decided to come back to Mississippi.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here too. I'm glad you're here too.
Oh, thanks, yeah.
I love listening to your show. I love the show about the Cowboys.
Wasn't he?
He was amazing. Your radio program was fabulous.
That is always so much fun. And that's the beautiful thing, and you know that, because you're a storyteller, I'm a storyteller. It's just, and we've had that discussion, it's like, do we just have great stories, or do we have great storytellers? And I think it's a little bit of both.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Definitely.
Both.
Well, congratulations on the 300th anniversary, and thank you for hosting us once again in Natchez. Like I said,
please come back.
Major Chamber of Commerce weather.
Yeah,
it's just perfect weather here too.
Good. Well, I hope you'll come back for the birthday. We'd love to have you guys back.
Oh, as long as I have a piece of cake.
Honey.
Or better yet, just get Regina's to get some biscuits.
We're going to have 300 cakes and Regina's biscuits.
Well, then I'm here for the biscuits.
Yay!
Very good.
Thanks, Marshall,
thank
so much.
you. Appreciate it.